the end of the world, talking fish heads, and the scariest thing to come out of Sweden since the meatballs at IKEA. The Umbrella Academy Season 2 is here, and there's a lot to talk about. In this video, we'll be going over the ending and explaining some of the season's most unanswered questions, including theories for Season 3, like what on earth or space is Reginald Hargreaves? What is this Sparrow Academy, and how this scene from Season 1 may hold the key to those supernatural powers. But before we begin, make sure to like and subscribe with that bell on, because here we go. The final episode begins with a flashback of arguably one of Umbrella Academy's darkest days, the death of Ben in the year 2006. Instead of offering words of comfort, Reginald blames Ben's death on the kids, using it as a learning experience for them to train harder and do better so it doesn't happen again.
Despite years of training and weeks of preparation, you allowed number 6 to die on this mission.
I don't think he'll be winning Father of the Year anytime soon. Klaus, who has the ability to communicate with the dead, uses his power to make Ben reappear, convincing him to stay with him in the land of the living instead of walking toward the light into what is conceivably heaven. Klaus has long held himself responsible for Ben staying instead of going off to the next life, but as we learn in the previous episode when Ben whispers something into Vanya's ear, it wasn't Klaus who made Ben stay. Ben was just scared of going toward the light, something he overcomes when he literally goes toward the light to save Vanya and ascends to the afterlife in the process. But don't count Ben out, or any other dead characters for that matter, as we see in the final scene the opening of alternate timelines could mean the return of characters like the Handler or Hazel, but we'll get into that in a bit. Back in present day, 1963, the Umbrella Academy is on the run after authorities believe they're involved with the assassination of John F. Kennedy. Most of the season has revolved around this particular incident. When Diego gains access to the Infinite Switchboard, he finds out that in this timeline, Vanya causes an explosion in the FBI building that almost kills JFK. Now, the Americans think this was an attack by the Russians and retaliate, setting in motion a nuclear holocaust that we see happening at the beginning of Episode 1. That's what this season is all about, preventing another apocalypse and getting the Academy back to their original timeline. And while this season is about that on the surface, it's equally about learning to put family first. Not only are all the members of the Academy physically torn apart from each other at the beginning of this season, so too are they emotionally. In Episode 1, Diego says this:
"I'm a lone wolf. I don't run with a pack."
Klaus pushes people away, including Ben.
Nobody needs your shit, Klaus. That's why you're always alone.
And Luther wants to be alone because he believes every time he helps, it only leads to more pain.
We have to find the others because the world ends again in 10 days.
I don't give a shit.
If the team is going to stop the apocalypse, they'll need to overcome their flaws and work together. And this all comes to a head in the final episode where Vanya asks her family to help save Harlan, the young boy who has seemingly manifested supernatural powers. Now, this is where things get really interesting. In Episode 4, Harlan nearly drowns but is saved by Vanya when she performs CPR. In the process, these small orange balls of energy are transferred from Vanya to Harlan, and I couldn't help but think they look oddly like those floating orbs Reginald releases shortly after the death of his wife. Now, to give some context here, the final episode of Season 1 sees Reginald saying goodbye to his dying wife in the distant past. We aren't sure how long ago this was. It could be hundreds if not thousands of years, likely on some other planet as their species evacuates. And when his wife dies, he releases these orbs into the air. But what is it? Well, here's what we do know. They can give life to the dead, and that Vanya has them in her body. When she later saves Harlan, that energy is once again brought back into her. We don't know if any of the other Academy members have this energy within them. We do know that there is likely some connection between Reginald's wife and Vanya, because in that very same scene, the wife requests Reginald bring her violin, which she says to give to someone special. That person will later be Vanya, who becomes a famous violinist. This energy also seems to give, or at least trigger, one's innate superhero power. Harlan, prior to getting the energy, does not possess any power, yet afterward he does. And after Vanya sucks that energy back up, we see him able to levitate one of his toys. His powers remain. Will we see Vanya do this to others? And can she use this this power to bring others back to life? That'll be a question for next season. The family decides to help Vanya, and upon arriving at Sissy's farm, they find Harlan unable to control his power. Sissy even holds a gun to Vanya, thinking she did something to her boy, but Vanya says,
"We are not the monsters that they say we are. We did not kill the president. We are not terrorists. We're not here to hurt anyone."
And that's part of Vanya's character arc this season. She has come to terms with who she is, not just in terms of her power, but also sexually. Reginald treated her like a monster and suppressed her powers with drugs. Carl treats her like a monster because she's bisexual. It isn't until Ben gives her a heartwarming speech, which I personally thought was the most heartwarming scene of the entire season, that Vanya learns she isn't a monster after all. Meanwhile, Lila and the handler show up on the farm. The handler, who is now the head of the commission, has manipulated Lila into thinking Five killed her parents. Well, he did, but she left out the important detail that it was her who oversaw the mission and had it done so she could raise Lila, who she knew had extraordinary powers. As we soon find out, Lila has arguably one of the strongest powers we've seen yet, the ability to mimic the power of those around her. She can take on Luther's strength, Five's teleportation, and even Vanya's energy blasts. As an aside, over the course of the season, we've seen the powers of the Academy children improve as well. For example, Diego is able to stop all these bullets, and as glimpsed in episode 1, Klaus can control the dead to fight alongside him. These open up cool new possibilities for next season. Lila's powers call into question the presence of other such superhero children. Remember that the Umbrella kids were all born on the same day at the same exact time to mothers who weren't pregnant when the day began. There were 43 such cases, yet Reginald was only able to adopt 7 of them. That's 36 other kids with potential powers we don't know. Well, I guess with Lila it now makes 35. Then we also have Harlan, who wasn't one of the children born in '89. He has powers now. So my theory is that this all has something to do with energy transference, like those orange balls, and that Reginald knows far more about this than he's leading on. Lila takes on Five and learns that the handler was the one pulling the strings over her parents' death.
She never cared about your parents. She was looking for you.
Diego even tries to convince Lila that they can be her new family.
I know that we can be your family. If you just let us.
This is a big change for Diego, who at the beginning of the season referred to himself as a lone wolf. And it really looks like Lila is going to join the Academy until the handler comes in and brutally murders them all, even killing Lila, who asks her if she ever really loved her. The handler is then shot by the last remaining Swede, who wants revenge for being manipulated by her. If you recall earlier in the season, the handler was sending the Swedes fake messages from the commission that she handcrafted herself, which would result in the deaths of the Swedes' other 2 brothers. And it looks like this would be the end of the Umbrella Academy if it weren't for Five, who remembers a line from his father.
Start small. Seconds, not decades.
Five is able to go back in time right before the handler shoots them all, causing a chain of events that leads to Lila escaping using the briefcase and the handler being shot by the Swede. 2 interesting things here. 1, the Swede doesn't kill any of the Academy, and this likely has to do with the Swedish saying öga för öga, or eye for an eye. He got his revenge on the person who orchestrated the deaths of his brothers. He got his eye for an eye. It's also pretty funny that he ends up hitching a ride with Klaus's cult, Destiny's Children, named after Destiny's Child. Number 2 is Lila. I can pretty much guarantee this won't be the last we see of her, as she'll likely be in that same alternate timeline the Academy ends up at the end of the season. Plus, her powers have way too much story potential, especially if we start encountering new, more powerful heroes. Herb sees all these dead bodies, and I can't help but think that's going to be one hell of a cleanup. He's the new acting chairperson of the commission until a new board of directors is elected. So this looks like there will be a much more amicable relationship between the commission and the Umbrella Academy going into the future. Speaking of the future, Sissy tells Vanya that she and Harlan won't go with her to 2019, and that's because Vanya can't promise Harlan a normal life or that he'll even be safe. Who knows what dangers the future will hold, who will come after Vanya, and Sissy can't have that around her child. Even Allison says goodbye to her husband, Ray, which I thought was the weakest of the goodbyes. She basically says she doesn't belong in 1963 in a letter floor and just bounces. Poor Ray. Klaus learns to let go of Dave, who in this timeline he'll never fall in love with in Vietnam, and here we see Jack Ruby, Luther's boss at the club, pick up a gun, presumably to shoot Lee Harvey Oswald, the man who shot JFK, who he actually killed in real life. The Umbrella Academy ends the season just as they ended season 1, going through time together. They arrive on April 2nd, 2019, the day after the original apocalypse back at the Academy, but they soon discover things aren't what they seem. Reginald is alive and well, even remembering them from the 60s. A photo of Ben is on the mantelpiece instead of 5, and the Academy is no longer the Umbrella Academy, rather the Sparrow Academy. It seems their foray into time travel has completely changed the timeline. But this final scene gives us valuable clues as to what we can expect from season 3. Having Reginald back in the picture opens up massive potential for learning more about his alien origin and how that origin relates to the Academy's powers. There's also the question of other aliens. If Reginald made it to Earth, is it not possible there are others? And the fact 56 years have passed since the events of 1963 mean we could see old characters pop up, including Ray, Sissy, but more likely Harlan. In fact, Vanya's connection to Harlan almost undoubtedly means he'll make a return, but the question is, will he be in his 70s if they meet again, since Harlan would have grown up and the year is now 2019. Another huge factor is 5, now having a better hold on his ability to travel back in time. He did it at the end of the season, will he do it again, and in what capacity? Then there's the whole question of old 5 who traveled back to the original timeline, but as far as we know, likely did not turn into a boy since 5 told him the error in his original time travel calculations. This old 5 also has the knowledge that Vanya is the bomb that starts the apocalypse, and that eyeball thing is a total red herring.
Yeah. That's a waste of time, trust me.
Then there's the Sparrow Academy itself. It's comprised of 7 individuals just like the Umbrella Academy, however there are some key differences worth noting. Other than the obvious Sparrow emblem rather than an umbrella, the Sparrow Academy has 7 different members with the exception of Ben. Remember that Reginald in this timeline got to meet and dislike pretty much all the members of the Umbrella Academy in the 60s, so it stands to reason that he chose 7 different children than them to raise. He also never met Ben since he was a ghost, so that explains why he was chosen. These members also have different abilities. For example, one can turn into a murder of crows, and another can pass on self-inflicted pain onto others. There's also this floating green cube, which I'm guessing is like this Academy's version of Ben, but instead of being a ghost, it's some sort of consciousness put into it. If these Sparrow Academy members are indeed different characters altogether, that could potentially mean that there are doppelgangers of the Umbrella Academy who were never raised by Reginald still out there in the world. I could definitely see a scenario where those characters become the villains next season, and it's up to the 2 academies to join forces to take them on. And it would be kind of fun to see them take on alternate versions of themselves and see how those versions would have grown up had they not been taken in by Reginald. In the comics, the Sparrow Academy reveal themselves to the Umbrella Academy and save them from a group of supervillains. With the first 2 seasons revolving around stopping the apocalypse, I think heading into a new direction where they have a new external threat is a welcome change. Next season it looks like things are really going to shake up for the Umbrella Academy, who are now at odds with the Sparrows, and a new yet to be introduced antagonist. Hopefully the show will be renewed, but as of yet there's no word, but hopefully there will be soon, because we all want to know if Pogo will still be alive in this new timeline. Thanks for watching everyone. What did you think of the latest season? I want to hear your comments below. And before you go, make sure to leave a like and subscribe and check out my other videos. For more bad takes, you can follow me on Twitter at ThinkStoryYT. And until next time, remember,
I'm the daddy here.